Let's start with the atmosphere, because before a single line of dialogue lands in this trailer, the visual language alone is already telling you everything you need to know about where Season 4 is headed. And what it is telling you is this. The Gilded Age that we have known and loved and obsessively followed for 3 seasons, that glittering, golden, almost intoxicatingly beautiful version of New York high society has changed. Something underneath it has fundamentally, irreversibly shifted, and not a single character walking through those grand halls, sitting in those opulent drawing rooms, or wearing those breathtaking gowns is fully prepared for what that shift is going to demand of them. The color palette in this trailer is the first thing that hits you, and it hits you hard. Where previous seasons leaned into warmth, into that lush, almost candy-bright gilded aesthetic that made every frame feel like a painting you wanted to step inside. Season 4 is doing something noticeably, deliberately different. The golds are deeper now, heavier. The shadows are longer and darker, and they seem to fall across faces in ways that feel intentional, almost oppressive. There is a visual weight to this trailer that earlier seasons simply did not carry. And that weight is not accidental. It is storytelling. It is the show telling you, through pure cinematic language, that this season is not going to be about the thrill of social climbing or the electric pleasure of watching someone like Bertha Russell outmaneuver an entire ballroom full of old money. Those days, glorious as they were, are behind us now. Season 4 is about something harder, something that cuts deeper. It is about the cost of every single choice these characters have made, and the very real, very painful bill that is now coming due. And you feel it. From the very first seconds of this trailer, you feel it in your chest in a way that is honestly difficult to articulate but impossible to ignore. Because this show has spent 3 seasons making you care about these people so ferociously that the sight of them carrying pain, even when they are doing everything in their considerable power to conceal it, registers as something almost physical. We know these characters. We have history with them. We have watched them win and lose and fight and love and scheme and occasionally, just occasionally, let their guards down enough to show us who they really are underneath all the performance and the armor and the ambition. And so when this trailer shows them standing at the edge of something enormous, something that feels irreversible, the emotional impact is not just significant. It is staggering. The grand houses are still standing, of course. The Gilded Age is not suddenly going to strip away its visual magnificence, because that magnificence has always been more than just decoration. It is character. It is the world these people have built and fought for and defined themselves by. Those houses, those rooms, those clothes, they are not just a backdrop. They are a language, and what Season 4 appears to be doing with that language is something genuinely sophisticated and deeply exciting. It is showing us all that beauty, all that grandeur, all that carefully constructed perfection, and then pulling back just far enough to let you see the cracks running through it. The fault lines. The places where 3 seasons worth of choices and consequences and compromises have quietly been doing their damage beneath the gleaming surface. And now, in Season 4, those cracks are no longer quiet. They are splitting open. And the fallout is spectacular. What makes this opening atmosphere so gripping is that it manages to do something that is genuinely difficult in television storytelling. It makes you feel the passage of time and the weight of history without slowing down for a single moment. Every frame is loaded with the accumulated emotional baggage of everything that has come before. You do not need to be reminded of what happened in Season 3. You do not need a recap, because it is all right there, written across the faces of these characters, pressed into the way they hold their shoulders, visible in the careful way they choose their words and guard their expressions. These are people who have been through something, who have made choices that cannot be unmade, who are living every single day inside the consequences of those choices. And the trailer captures that psychological reality with a kind of visual and emotional intelligence that is honestly stunning too. Witness, this is a show that has always been smarter and deeper and more emotionally daring than it sometimes gets credit for. And Season 4, based on everything this trailer is showing us, is about to make that case more powerfully than ever before. The world of the Gilded Age has shifted underneath everyone's feet. The question that Season 4 is going to spend its entire run answering is a devastating one. Who is strong enough, or broken enough, or brave enough to build something new in the wreckage? Let's talk about Bertha, because if this trailer makes one thing absolutely, undeniably clear above everything else, it is that Season 4 belongs to her in a way that even the previous 3 seasons, as birthday-heavy and birthday-driven as they were, did not quite prepare us for. This is her season, her reckoning, her reinvention, and watching her navigate all of it, watching her take the most personally devastating circumstances of her life and somehow, impossibly, forge them into something even more formidable than what came before, is going to be one of the most riveting things this show has ever given us, bar none. To understand where Bertha is at the start of season 4, you have to sit with where season 3 left her. And where it left her wasn't a place that would have broken most people. Not broken in the obvious, dramatic sense. Not crumbled publicly or wept openly or let the mask slip in any way that polite New York society could whisper about over their dinner tables. That is not who Bertha Russell is. That has never been who Bertha Russell is. But broken in the quiet, interior sense. In the sense that the thing she built her entire world around, the partnership with George, the shared vision, the unspoken understanding between two people who have always been, at their core, each other's greatest allies and each other's most complicated challenges. That thing is fractured in a way that even Bertha's extraordinary will and extraordinary intelligence cannot simply strategize away. And the trailer knows this. And it shows you this. Not loudly, not with dramatic declarations or tearful confrontations, but in the way she carries herself, in the particular quality of composure she is projecting, which is not the confident, almost playful composure of a woman who knows she holds all the cards. It is something tighter, something that is working harder, something that is holding together through sheer force of will rather than genuine ease. And if you know Bertha, really know her, that distinction is devastating. Because here's the thing about Bertha Russell that has always made her such a magnetic, complicated, endlessly fascinating character to watch across every single season of this show. She does not crumble gracefully. She does not step back, reassess quietly, and make her peace with defeat. That is simply not in her architecture. Bertha Russell looks at destruction and sees raw material. She looks at a falling wall and starts calculating how to build something even more impressive in its place. She has always been this way. From the very first episode. From the very first moment we watched her crash her way into a society that wanted nothing to do with her, using nothing but intelligence and nerve and an absolute refusal to accept the limitations that other people tried to place on her. Bertha has operated on the principle that there is no obstacle that cannot be overcome with enough will and enough strategy. It is what makes her brilliant. It is what makes her sometimes terrifying. And it is what makes her, in this season more than any other, genuinely heartbreaking to watch. Because season 4 is going to push that quality in her to its absolute outermost limit. The trailer shows us glimpses of Bertha that are startling in how much they reveal, even when she is at her most controlled and most composed. There is a version of Bertha in these frames that is carrying something heavy, something that all the jewels and all the influence and all the carefully accumulated social victories in the world cannot quite cover up. She is expanding her reach, cementing new alliances, welcoming people into her circle that old New York would have fainted at the mere suggestion of, and she is doing all of it with the same ferocious, forward-moving energy that has always defined her. But underneath that energy, underneath that relentless forward momentum, there is something raw, something that has not been there before in quite this way. And that something is the quiet, terrible knowledge that the one person whose approval she has never had to earn, the one person who chose her before she became Bertha Russell of Fifth Avenue, is not coming home. George's absence from the family house is not just a wound to Bertha's heart, although it is absolutely that, and the trailer does not let you forget it for a single moment. It is also a public statement. And in the world that Bertha inhabits, in the world that she has sacrificed and schemed and fought her way to the very top of the public statement, is perhaps the most dangerous thing of all. Because perception in these circles is not just important, it is everything. It is the currency that everything else runs on. A husband who does not come home is a story. It is whispered about at dinner tables. It is dissected in drawing rooms. It is noticed at every social gathering by every sharp-eyed woman who has always been waiting, with barely concealed patience, for some crack to appear in Bertha Russell's magnificent, unassailable facade. And now that crack is not just visible. It is the talk of the season. And for a woman whose entire identity, whose entire life's project, is built on projecting an image of absolute, impenetrable success, that reality is almost more unbearable than the heartbreak itself. What the trailer captures with such remarkable, aching subtlety is the fact that Bertha is, for perhaps the very first time in the entire run of this show, fighting a battle on two fronts simultaneously. There is the external battle, the one she has always been fighting, the one she is genuinely extraordinary at, the campaign to maintain and expand her social dominance in a world that is itself changing around her in ways she did not entirely anticipate or control. And then there is the internal battle, the one being fought in the quiet spaces between all the strategy, and all the performance, and all the magnificent forward momentum. The battle to hold herself together, to hold her family together, to reconcile the woman she has become with the choices that made her that woman, and to figure out whether the life she has built, glittering and powerful and enviable as it is still worth what it is costing her. That internal battle is new territory for Bertha, and watching her navigate it is going to be extraordinary. And then there is George. And George, in this trailer, is a man I barely recognize. And I mean that in the most fascinating, most compelling way possible. Because the George Russell we have watched across 3 seasons of this show has always been a particular kind of man. Controlled, measured, enormously powerful in that quiet, still, almost geological way that the truly powerful often are. A man who did not need to raise his voice or make grand gestures, because the simple fact of his presence, of his attention, of his will being directed at something, was more than enough. George Russell has always been the kind of man who moved the world by deciding to, and watching him in this trailer, watching what the season has made of him, is one of the most emotionally striking things this entire first look has to offer. Because George is not that man anymore. Or rather, he is still that man. All that intelligence and all that will and all that quiet, contained power are still absolutely present in every frame he appears in. But something has shifted underneath it all. Something that his health scare in season 3 set in motion, and that his decision to stay away from the family home has now made undeniable. There is a deliberateness to George in these frames that is different from his usual controlled quality. It is not the deliberateness of a man who knows exactly what he wants and is moving steadily toward it. It is the deliberateness of a man who is, possibly for the very first time in his adult life, genuinely uncertain. Not about business, not about power, but about the things that matter more than either of those, about what his life actually means, about what he actually wants it to look like. About whether the story he has been living inside is truly his own, or whether it is a story that was constructed around him. Piece by gilded piece, by a woman he loves more than he has ever been entirely comfortable admitting that health scare. Let us not move past it too quickly, because I think it is the key to understanding everything about where George is in this trailer and where he is headed in season 4. Because surviving something like that, genuinely staring down the possibility of your own ending and then pulling back from it, does not leave a person unchanged. It cannot. It recalibrates everything. It forces a kind of brutal, unfiltered honesty with yourself that the ordinary business of living, with all its distractions and responsibilities and carefully maintained routines, usually allows you to avoid indefinitely. When George was lying there in that alarming state at the end of season 3, when Bertha was beside herself in that startling, unguarded way that we had never quite seen from her before, something shifted for him. Not immediately. Not in any way that was visible in those moments. But the shift happened. And what we are seeing in this trailer is the aftermath of that shift working its way to the surface. George is asking himself questions he has never allowed himself to ask before. And the answers he is finding are complicated and uncomfortable and do not map neatly onto the life he has been living. He loves Bertha. That has always been clear, even at the height of their most bruising conflicts. Even in the moments when their two enormous, powerful, occasionally incompatible, wills have collided most spectacularly. The love between them has never been in question. But love and willingness to continue on a particular path are not always the same thing. And whatever George is searching for in his distance from the family home, whatever it is that he is trying to understand about himself and his marriage and the choices that have brought them both to this particular crossroads, the trailer makes it tantalizingly, agonizingly unclear whether he is going to find it, and what it is going to cost every single person around him if he does not. What makes George's arc in this trailer so compelling is precisely this quality of genuine unknown. We have always been able to read George, at least partially. He is a man of principle beneath all a man who, when pushed to his core, has always ultimately chosen what he believed was right even when it was costly. But season 4 is pushing him somewhere new. Somewhere where right and wrong are not clearly delineated, where the principles that have always guided him are not pointing in any obvious direction, where the only compass available is his own heart. And George Russell navigating by his heart alone, without the structure of business or ambition or social position to anchor him, is something we have genuinely never seen before. It is uncharted territory for this character, and uncharted territory, for a man like George, is the most dangerous place of all. The trailer gives us glimpses of him that feel almost unbearably intimate given how guarded he has always been. There is a quietness to him that is not peace. It is the quietness of someone doing very serious, very private interior work. The quietness of a man who is dismantling something and has not yet figured out what, if anything, he is going to build in its place. And the shadow that quietness casts over every scene he appears in. Over every glimpse of Bertha reaching forward and George standing just slightly apart is the shadow of a love story at its most precarious, at its most human, at its most heartbreakingly real. Now, as devastating and as utterly consuming as the George and Bertha storyline is, and it absolutely is, let us not forget that The Gilded Age has always been an ensemble show in the truest, most generous sense of that word. This is not a show that sacrifices its supporting characters to serve its central arc. Every single person in this world has a complete, compelling, beautifully rendered story of their own. And the Season 4 trailer, even while keeping Bertha and George at its emotional center, makes it wonderfully clear that the rest of this extraordinary cast is heading into their most interesting territory yet. Let's start with Marian and Larry, because after everything those two went through in Season 3, they more than earned whatever happiness Season 4 is about to give them. The returned ring, the heartache, the seemingly endless stretch of misunderstanding and mistiming and circumstances, conspiring against two people who were so obviously, so completely right for each other that watching them circle around their own feelings was simultaneously maddening and deeply satisfying in the way that only the best romantic storytelling can be. They found their way back to each other by the finale. And Season 4, based on everything we are seeing, is going to give us the joy of watching them actually build something together. Something real and solid, and I firmly, completely, with my whole heart believe that we are finally going to witness their wedding. Not the fraught, reluctant kind. Not the kind shadowed by doubt or obligation. The real kind. The kind where two people who chose each other freely and fully stand up in front of everyone and make it official. Marian at that altar, not crying tears of reluctance, but absolutely radiant with the genuine article, is a moment this show has been building toward since the beginning. And if Season 4 delivers it, and every instinct I have says it will, it is going to be one of the most satisfying payoffs this story has ever produced.